Let me hold on
Oh,
one second. Let me turn my
we're live. It's too late. We're going. All right. Well, while he's going away or coming back, I'm Ben Bates, and I've done storyboards and comic books on cartoons like Avengers Assemble, where I met
Chris Staggs. That's me. I also was doing the same thing, storyboards and a few comic books. So maybe one day there'll be more comic books, hopefully. So yeah.
This week we're going to talk about Batman Family, issue number 19, which we're reading both for the we read both for the first time. And primarily this is because it is drawn by, or at least this is okay. So you actually own the physical version of this one this week. And it's it's a Michael Golden collection because he did the pencils, if not the inks as well. Did you pay attention to that? I can't remember.
P. Craig Russell actually did
the inks.
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't know if we did this last week, but we should mention the writer, the artist.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get into the right. Well, in regard of last week, it's JoJo's, which is the writer artist is the same, Hirohiko Araki. In this case, we're doing an American comic, so it's going to be a Frankenstein approach. But yes, we're definitely going to be talking about Denny O'Neil, who is the writer of this particular issue. Now, what I wanted to in your collection, since it's focused on Michael Golden, to my surprise, I'd never read any of the Batman Family issues. This is from 1978 or 1979. We'll check out in a second. It's a collection of stories. So there's the first one is a Batman, and then there's a Batgirl, there's a Man-Bat, and there's a Huntress story, all in the actual issue. But I'm assuming you have only the Batman portion of it because that's what Michael Golden drew.
Yes, and also you were talking about the cover earlier, and
does it have the cover included in your collection?
Does it? No. So it's weird. The story previous to this ends on one page, and then the next one just starts, and there's no cover. So you get the title page, which kind of and then you have the index or whatever. But yeah, it would be nice if they had the covers at the
and looking at it
of the stories, but they don't.
Don't see any signature on this cover to indicate, to guarantee who drew it or not. And I don't know, maybe it's drawn by Michael Golden, maybe it's not. I'm just by looking at it and knowing the way Michael Golden draws faces and heads, would you take a guess, a stab? Are these Michael Golden drawings, or is this somebody else?
I don't think that's Michael Golden.
I'm also of the mind that it's not Michael Golden.
Yeah, it's tricky because this older work, it doesn't look like what most of his work looks like. I mean, it's very immature Michael Golden.
Yes, and that's part of okay, let's get into it. So page 1, this is presumably what you have, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so even though this is earlier, and as your word, immature Michael Golden, this is still fantastic drawing, right? This Batman cape, the pose, getting to see the muscle, highlighted in the different things, this nice simplified background, but it's alive, just the high contrast mountains, the high contrast in with the actual use of screen tone on the forest, all of this is just fantastic drawing. And I love this text, the actual lettering on the title. It's so alive, And just one small thing that I meant to check out, but I forgot in the other Batman Family or comic books of this time period. I was curious if the other titles had the quotations on them, because it doesn't necessarily need them, but it I don't know. I was is that the norm or is that not the norm?
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. So I'm looking at another one, and it doesn't have the quotation. Wait, does it? Oh no, it does actually. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that is the norm, is that the title is supposed to have quotations. I'm going to start paying attention to it.
Yeah, it looks like they all do actually. Well,
okay, so
I checked 2 just now, and they both of them did. So that's 3 that do. So I'm assuming they all do.
And these are all in your collection of the Michael Golden stuff, right?
Yeah.
And probably around there. I'm assuming they do it by time frame. Do you know what those issues are off the top? Like, does it make it clear? Like for example, when you got to here, did you know that this was a Batman family comic, or you said like one story ends and the next story just starts?
It literally just starts on
Okay.
this page, the title page. Yeah.
All right. So what I go
up
ahead.
front it tells you, but
Yeah. So it's only in the table of contents essentially to be able to find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So this story is written by Denny O'Neil. Now, what do you know about Denny O'Neil?
I mean, I knew he wrote Batman, and I think was he the editor in chief at DC for a while or no?
That's a good question. I don't know if he was editor in chief. What I
feel like we don't know that much about comics.
What I do know is that Denny O'Neil is involved with Batman for a long, long time. So he gets started with he gets started with the DC Comics in the 60s, I believe, but he gets started with Batman in the 70s. And so like you can go back into the early 70s, he's writing Batman stories. And I've only read a handful of those, but like I remember a really cool one from early 70s where the Batman's Batmobile, I don't remember what the story is at all. But I do remember the Batman's Batmobile was very, very like just muscle car like it almost had no additional ornamentation to it to define it as a Batman car.
Yeah.
But it was cool because that's a cool car. But also around that time frame for those comics, there was a really heavy emphasis on the mystery element. And like so, as I was reading through the comic, it would have these like maybe editorial, like you know how in American comics often if the character mentions something in a previous issue, it'll have the little star and then it'll be like this all happened in issue 618, you know, and then editor. It was kind of like those where it would say like Batman has all the clues, did you catch him, you know, do you know can you solve that? Like it was as if they were really trying to embrace this mystery element, this detective element, that the readers themselves could be involved with the case before, you know, and like hopefully you're catching the clues, and it was a really interesting focus that is not quite, you know, by this time it's not it doesn't seem to be as much of a driving force in the comics even by the late 70s. But anyway, Denny O'Neil goes on to, so he writes a lot of comics of Batman, and then he becomes the like main editor of the Batman titles, and like he's in charge when Frank Miller does Return of the Dark Knight. And I guess either that or year one, some between one of the two, I can't remember, is when they have a bit of a falling out, and Frank Miller refuses to work with Denny O'Neil, and he doesn't come back to Batman until Denny O'Neil leaves the position of being like the main guy in charge of Batman. But there's a lot of stuff that Denny O'Neil does quite well, and I feel like he has a strong understanding of who Batman is. So like at the moment I see it's a Denny O'Neil story, I think, okay, cool, I'm in for something that I believe will be reflective of truly who Batman is. Oh, and he's credited for, just to throw it out there, I meant to send you the video last week, but I forgot. The Batman character over time, how he's changed. And so like in the 60s, of course, you know that his goofy, campy Adam West show defined who the character was. And by the 70s, the comic, but even by the early 70s, the comic is trying really hard to undo essentially what is the damage, because that show is so pervasive. I don't know if popular is the right word or not, but the idea of that Batman was it spread out so far in pop culture that that's who Batman became. But they didn't want, in the 70s, they didn't want that to be reflective of who Batman actually was. Right. And so when Denny O'Neil comes in, he and Neil Adams start to help redefine the character into what we actually know as Batman, and what I like. You know, I've never cared for that campy version, where it's more grounded in sort of a darkness of the character. And that's why, you know, like as early as he's got that muscle car, you know, to try and define a little bit more intensity to the character. So anyway, that's where Denny O'Neil helped to try to get Batman back on track, and that, you know, is largely successful, I think. You know that, but it took a long time to undo the damage, apparently.
Yeah,
because it all happened before you and I were born.
It's interesting that you say that, because when I was reading this, that was actually something that I was thinking about. You know, how Batman has changed over the years, and like what is this sort of version of Batman at
Yes.
this time, because you know, like once we get into the story, there's like a line in here where I was like, man, that's not Batman. Like what is
Yes. So let's move forward so we can get to some of that stuff. So okay. So this first page is in the right vein of what I want out of a Batman comic, though, right? There's an intensity here. We see Batman, because his cape looks like it's jacked up. We have a crashed, helicopter here, and even in the most, the very first line, it is a moment of sheer horror. Like, we're not messing around with like silly Batman at this point, right? This is an attempt to actually try and tell some. What I don't want to use the word realistic because superheroes shouldn't be realistic, in my opinion.
yeah.
I don't want to use the term adult or anything like that. So, what is a good term here? What how can we describe Batman in a way that isn't the silly version of him, the campy version, but also isn't the more modern take where it's very grounded and serious version of him? What is this?
I mean, I think they want you to know there's like real stakes that are at play here.
Yep.
Although I don't think that that's consistent throughout the story, but I think they want you to know like there's real danger.
Yes, real danger. That's a good. Okay, so unless you think you're on the verge of really solidifying what the term might be.
Well, I was gonna say serious, but then you were like, no, you can't do that. So.
I can't. I don't want to do serious because it makes me think of all the nonsense of today's comic books. Because those are very serious comic books.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe serious is appropriate, but it's unfortunate that it could be misleading in terms of what we actually are trying to say.
Yeah, I just think like they're trying to show you like, hey, there are stakes to this. That like bad things can happen with consequences. Yeah.
So I dig this first. I'm not a fan of comic books that open and or end with splash pages. Mm. And so to me, this is not a splash page, even though it technically probably is a splash page. Usually what I think of in terms of like an opening splash page is like some like try hard image, an image that's like trying to be like kaboom, like an explosion in your face. Whereas this is like setting, right? It happens to be, it's like one giant panel rather than a splash page.
Yeah. There's storytelling going on.
Yes, exactly. There you go. And as we move into page 2, I wanted to point out though, right? So in this text, these captions, we're getting some explanation of what we're looking at and a building tension. Like in this last the one, it says the mountains are silent, brooding, and their strange secret may cost the Batman his life. But he has no choice. He must venture into the tomb of the White Bat. It's building a little narrative here. It's getting the story started. We're also seeing this image of a crash, and like there's clearly a hand sticking out. I mean, that's obvious to you, right? Oh, first of all, is that obvious to you?
I think that could be staged a bit better. I mean, yes, it kind of gets lost
because it's overlapping with Batman's.
Yeah. Leg. If you move Batman up a little bit and put the hand
in the white.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But he's not fully there yet.
Right. Okay, but in your collection, are the colors the same? Because thankfully this looks to be a scanned in original issue where I can see the texture of the paper in these colors.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to see it, but I think the colors are the same. But again, I think like you see how much more blue there is on the snow. I don't know if you can see, like it's much more saturated.
Yes, it's much. Yeah, it's like it's so light in this scanned version.
Yeah, I think it's just because it's printed on different paper. I think it's the same colors, but they just are much more saturated.
Yeah. So are you getting, like, even in that sky, that orange and yellow sky, are you getting any sense of texture in there, or is it just like a flat orange and a flat yellow?
No, it's flat. I think the texture is coming from the paper. It's interesting because the scan here, it looks like white paper, but I'm certain it's newsprint, right? So
I mean, it's got to be because I can see like so much of this like nice, there's it's not a consistent, like the color has absorbed in different layers basically, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so you can feel it just looking at it. But it is cool that if however that collection is doing it, it looked like it was exactly the same, just more saturated.
Yeah, I think it's just printed on this glossy paper, so the color really, is much more saturated, and it's more, it separates more too. Like one of the nice things about newsprint is like the colors I think kind of blend a little bit more, and when you get reprints, even if it's the same colors, they separate a lot more, and it doesn't look very good.
Usually. Yeah, like, okay, so before we get into the actual artwork of this next page, I wanted to talk about the storytelling. So what we have here is this establishing shot, right, and a sort of an establishing of the tone with these captions and a little bit into the conversation of the story. But what we can see is we have a crashed helicopter, right, and Batman is looking at what we can guess at is a dead body. And so as we move from this page into this page, we get this other caption, and there's what I really liked about this is there is no indication that we're going back in time. When I first started reading this, I thought that we were simply moving forward, right? Like Batman is at this crashed helicopter, and now here's this other scene, and we're moving forward. And it isn't until panel 3 that we get indeed Mr. Wayne, which indicates that this character is Batman. And so now we know, like, but even then we don't know for sure that we've moved back in time yet. And so I'm just saying what I really love about this is that we're jumping back in time, but we don't have that hard, terrible 3 days earlier or 2 hours before, like, which I almost always despise, right? And so I dig that we're actually jumping back in time, but because the story just flows into it, it isn't off-putting in the sense that, like, oh, okay, cool. And it also doesn't let you know, because it didn't do that, you don't know that crashed helicopter is, spoiler, going to come up later on in the story.
Yeah.
So we're just discovering story. We're just in it. We're moving forward.
I actually didn't realize it until we started to talk about it. And I was like, wait a minute, the first page is the helicopter? I'm like, man, that's the end there.
I love it. I dig it. I love that it showed us, but it didn't make a point of it. And so by the time you get back there again, you forgot that it's a really great approach. It's something to learn if you want to. So there's the term in media res. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so in media res is apparently Latin, and it's the concept of start in the middle, I think is how or begin in the middle or something like that. And it's the storytelling concept of cut out all the boring parts and get right into what's actually meaningful, And a lot of storytellers abuse in media res. And so what they do is they take a portion of their story that's ostensibly the exciting part and just, copy and paste into the front of it and then back up and tell you all the boring parts anyway. And so as we're moving into this isn't actually boring. What we're seeing here, this is story. It's establishing itself because we're right into it, right? This first drawing is great because it's a nice vertical. We're starting with the mountains and we pan down into giving us context of the human element, this bus or whatever it is.
Yeah, this bus is hilarious. It's like they color it yellow, so it looks like a school bus. but then you've got like this ambassador on it, with Bruce Wayne, this millionaire and stuff, but it kind of looks like
a school bus. What's that?
It kind of looks like a combination of like a Jeep and a school bus.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, I wonder would you take a bus to like the snowy mountains? Doesn't seem like.
Well, it does look like it's heavy duty, right? We got like a winch, or at least some sort of tow cable.
It does, but like, is this a real vehicle that I just?
That's a good question. I was just
about.
I was wondering, like, did Michael Golden base this on something? And if he did, is it? Let's see. We got colors by Adrian Rocks, perhaps. So he didn't color it himself. But that's a good question. Like, is this based on a real vehicle? If it is based on a real vehicle, is it yellow? Or did Michael Golden, was he looking at something that, had some other like context that would have informed, like if it was a deep gray or like an olive or something like that, it'd have more of an army vibe to it.
Yeah, I don't think yellow.
Go ahead.
I don't know.
And maybe it is real. Maybe it's 100% real, and it's exactly that sort of yellow. And it is some kind of like mountain bus or something. Okay, so anyway, what I like about that kind of vertical tall shot is that because as our eyes scroll down, there's a passage of time moving from the mountains into a setting and saying, okay, here we are. This is our human. And then we cut in. And we cut in and we don't know these characters, but we're quickly getting established through dialogue, right? You're comfortable, Mr. Ambassador. Okay, we now know that this dude's an important figure. And he's making a tuss, and he actually says, you're more of a nursemaid than a secretary. Well, now we know his relationship, right? They're stating it out loud, but in a way that feels very natural, right? Because you would call somebody Mr. Ambassador. That would be what they would do. And him making a comment on how his behavior helps us to learn his title. It's not like poorly done exposition, I guess, might be the way to say it. Then he says, "You enjoying your journey, Ambassador Chack?" "Indeed, Mr. Wayne." Okay, now we know. Now we know that black-haired man is Mr. Wayne. Okay. So anyway, you're talking about this being early in Michael Golden's career. One of the things that I think we're seeing with Michael Golden is that Michael Golden likes to draw everything. He's a guy who's not just simply fixated on character and not just fixated on face, but because he's spending his time getting all of his skills together to draw literally everything. Like this drawing of this vehicle is great. I love that, you know. But because he's spending what I'll call skill points, and in a video game term, like you can only put your skill points so high. And so if all you do is draw characters, if all you do draw faces over and over, you're going to get great at drawing characters. You're going to get great at drawing faces. But we see with this ambassador face, there is a weakness evident here that and that's just because he's learning to draw everything. And so he's not prioritizing the facial structure over environment and vehicles and props and all that sort of stuff. Like, can you, like, when you look at that, do you see just a slight lack of solidity to it?
It looks better in my copy, I think, because what the reprint paper does that's like bad for color, it kind of does the opposite for the line art, right? Like the line art's a little, I mean, you're not going to be able to see it really,
right?
But it's a little more crisp, and the lines are a little thinner, you know. So it doesn't affect the structure, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, that face it doesn't.
Oh, it's not terrible by any means. I'm just saying we're seeing a Michael Golden still growing into the full powerhouse that he's going to become.
Yeah, there's some worse faces in some of these.
Yes, and let's point those out when we get to them.
Yeah.
Just to point out that, because what I take away from this sort of thing is like, okay, great, these fantastic artists, they're not perfect. You know, they didn't emerge from the womb as masters. They had to grow, and like it's just a way of reminding you, like, yes, okay, good. You know, like I too have to grow and hone my skills. Oh, sorry, I gotta grab this alarm.
Amateur.
Okay, so then we get in these next two panels. In who are these three characters? Who are they? Panel 3 or panel 4, I should say.
The like security guys, basically.
Yes. Yeah. So Secret Service men. So we're establishing all of our main players, and then we get this dialogue that he's been following the map, but he can't see any of the landmarks. They decide to drive over this bridge. And one of the things that I'll point that we're seeing here already with Michael Golden's approach, and I think that this will be evident throughout the entire comic, and it is cool, but also a slight weakness, is we're getting introduced to characters in these like wider shots, and like there's no way for us to know that. We can guess because he has black hair that's Bruce Wayne, but because we're out in the middle of nowhere, he might as well, he could have been a brand new character. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing visually, because we're so far away from him, to say like this is the only time we get close to anybody, right? So now we know we got a solid indication of who this character is. We saw him here, but then we get closer and we know, okay, that's Ambassador. I know the tags of him, right? It's very easy since he's like a heavy set with a bald head. But these three guys, because we're in this wide shot, especially this middle guy, he has no presence, right? He's almost non-existent. And that I like that Michael Golden is doing wide shots, But one of the potential problems throughout this story, rather, I think one of the problems actually throughout the story is that these other characters will come and go. And I often didn't know, like, okay, who is this guy? Oh, he's one of the bodyguards, I
Right.
guess, So that's kind of a problem when you do those wide shots where we're not really getting a firm sense of all of their tags and stuff.
Yeah. They're not like super prominent characters,
But they are pieces that will become important moving around as we go. And so if I could have gotten, he's doing a good job of tagging everybody in different ways. We have glasses, we have bald fat man, we have mustache man, we have nice wavy lighter colored hair, maybe even indication of freckles here. Maybe this dude's a redhead.
That's Banshee.
Yeah, exactly. We got kind of a Banshee vibe to him, and presumably this is going to be our tag for this guy, right? This green hat. And the colorist is actually doing a good job of separating, because here on this next page, when we have them all standing in this really far wide shot, I actually went make sure, because this guy says exactly Mr. Wayne. So we have this one. He says, "You're saying it was deliberate." And the guy says exactly Mr. Wayne, letting us know this is Bruce Wayne. And so I went back to make sure. Yep, sure enough, the colorist is doing a good job of keeping the characters identified each by their own color schemes, right? So that navy, maybe indigo coat, the light blue on Mustache Man, all of these colors are nice. They tell us who they are, right? So the colorist is doing a good job of helping to define them.
Yeah. Do you think that first panel would be better if it was flipped? So they'd be driving from the left to the right there?
Okay. Why do you say that?
Just because right now it's like the motion has you going right off the page in the first panel.
Okay, so here's why I actually do like it this way, because in page 2, or
I'm going to bring this up a lot, because I all the time I feel like I read comics and I'm like, man, why isn't this going the other direction? And like, maybe I'm just wrong about it, but
no, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying here's why I like it. So what we're getting narratively is the driver is saying, I don't recognize where we are, basically. I'm going to go over this bridge so that maybe we can, he says, we'll drive over the bridge to the top of that rise and maybe we can look around and see. So they're basically almost lost, right? They don't know where they are. And so we're going to this bridge and we can see that it's a wooden bridge. And when you're moving from left to right, the eye, because that's the way we Americans read, then the flow is unhindered, right? But by staging it in this way where it's going from right to left, to me, there's a subconscious element happening here. Two things. One, he's already established that this is a wooden bridge and we're nowhere in this heavy vehicle. And by having it go from right to left, it's going against our flow. And so it automatically slows it down. I think gives it a little resistance subconsciously. And so we know that, okay, he's probably slowed down to like cross this bridge, right? And so it's like pushing against us in a way that's why I think I like that. I like that choice. And maybe that's what Michael Golden, even if he wasn't conscious of it, decided to do in order to have that resistance, just to slow down. And then it naturally leads us down into the revelation of a gun, right? And maybe 2 guns. Some sort of
I wonder if he did it just because that puts the driver's side on the side that you're looking at.
And that might be. But at least that's what I'm saying. When we go against the natural flow, it creates resistance in a way that I like subconsciously.
Yeah.
All right, then kaboom. We got the bridge exploded. They get out. They're all speculating on, and like I said, Mr. Bruce Wayne says, "You're saying it was deliberate, that somebody actually blew this up on purpose."
That made me laugh, because it's like it's a wooden bridge and it just exploded. Like why would it explode? Like, of course it was deliberate. Like, man, he's a brilliant detective.
Well, but he's Bruce Wayne here, right? And so as Bruce Wayne, he needs to play. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like I'm not a detective. I think it'd be like, why did the bridge just explode? It's a wooden bridge. It was very strange.
Yes, I think, and we are getting some of that, right? Because this guy says, "Any theories to the cause of the explosion?" And this guy speculates, right? Yeah, dynamite or TNT or maybe a plastic charge, and that sets up so it's deliberate, So All right, so then we get this close-up shot. Now I'm only when I first read this, they're just background characters. I just zoomed past them, right? So I forgot that what any of these guys looked like. So when this guy got shot, I just had to. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a guy. One of the people in this bus got shot. I totally forgot who any of them were, or that this was the driver, right? Mm-hmm. So boom, a rifle rings out. This guy gets shot. They run back into the bus, and you okay, Pally? He says, yeah, it's only a scratch, so it's a minor wound, not that big of a deal of a gunshot.
Yeah.
And then this guy says, where's Wayne? He says, I believe he panicked. I observed him running toward the mountainside. So now we know Bruce Wayne being Batman is allowed to operate as Batman. And perhaps a good cover story for Bruce Wayne, right? Like, oh, there was a gunshot. He took off.
No, I mean, that's like always that's always what happens, right? It's like the hero looks cowardly. Like
yes, exactly.
Alter ego looks cowardly,
Yes, but in this, where that often goes badly for Peter Parker, it's almost never a bad thing for Bruce Wayne, right? Like it's always it's to his advantage in order to always throw people off the track and never suspect that Bruce Wayne, like the more cowardly Bruce Wayne can be, he's almost never like, he's like, he doesn't have too many loved ones that, like for Peter Parker, it's almost like his girlfriend is Aunt May. Like it's always going badly for him because those characters actually, he has to continue a deep relationship with, whereas Batman, like if it's his current girlfriend that he's only, posing with, it doesn't matter what she thinks. So anyway, I'm saying that it's almost always to Batman's advantage to seem as a coward. All right. Any commentary on these in additional ways?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So I want to point out though, this is realistic and good, right? So this bridge blows up, they get out, boom, somebody gets shot. Of course you're going to dive for cover, you're going to get back in the bus, and the best hope is that you're not going to get killed. But I'm going to bring this up because something will happen later on that undermines this.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so we get our first close-up of Bruce Wayne, 70s Bruce Wayne, where he's got a little bit more thicker hair in the that classic 70s sense, and he looks pretty good. To me, I dig like the old Gonagai Devilman. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Like those cool 70s sort of.
They all had that hairstyle.
Yeah,
bigger.
Exactly. So Batman looks pretty cool to me in this one. Yeah. And then we get these, and this is what I started to wonder about because we're looking at the 70s here. We get a lot of really cool Batman shaped capes, right? Mm-hmm. That like that looks super cool. This one looks super cool. This one where he jumps in the air and it does the perfect like bat. It's like when did that get established? Who's the first comic artist who was like, what? I can make Batman look super cool by making his cape do things that are, that just would not happen naturally ever. Yeah.
Well, I feel like it was pretty early on, right? Like even in the really early issues, I'm thinking of like that one really old cover where he's got like the nice like shape to the cape and it's got like the ridges for the
you're thinking like all the way back into the 40s and stuff.
Yeah, like the super old one. I think it had like a yellow background, and I don't know the issue, but
I think I know what you're talking about. But yeah, you're probably right. It probably is this early, which because I think that's part of what can be the most fun about comic books is the cool factor. Like, and some artists don't have any coolness to their drawings at all, and other like we use Jack Kirby. There's a dynamic element to his poses and his character and his storytelling, and then there's other comic book artists that have no dynamism at all, right? And so part of what to me is fantastic about comic books is when you get to have that coolness, when it breaks the rules of reality. Like this is so cool that he's jumping in the air like that, and his cape doesn't. I mean, the fact that a cape doesn't ever kill any of these people, right? Like because of the very nature of what a cape actually does. Sure. I don't want it to be real. I want capes to be as cool as they are in the comic book universe because they're freaking cool.
Yep.
But I was gonna say I just love a lot of these shots. Like this like we're just getting the full sense of the environment. I totally believe that Batman is running around in this cold. I love this this little I don't know what's the proper term here, where wind has presumably whipped up some of the snow. Like that is such a I can feel it. I can hear it. But my one criticism here is that if we were to like this head looks like it's probably in the wrong place. It might not be, but it just looks like it doesn't like it should be more a little bit down here, closer to the shoulder. You know, where if you were turning your head, you're gonna bring it here rather than being way high up like that.
Yeah. He does some. His proportions can be a little odd at times.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, there's some really good stuff in here too, like drawing one.
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. And here's our first. So, as much as Denny O'Neil is attempting to bring the darkness of Batman back into the character, because apparently, like it's very difficult for me to go back and read those 40 comic, like those 1940s, like when the Dark Knight was released, the second of the Christopher Nolan movies, and Two-Face was in that one, if you recall, played by Aaron Eckhart, I think. In the like DVD or something like that, they included a little collection of comic books of the first appearance of Two-Face. And I don't remember exactly what year it is, but it's definitely like way old, right? Like presumably before 60s, 40s, 50s, something like that. And it is just the worst story. It is so bad. Like what I remember most is that they need to find Two-Face's hideout, like so it's goons, and like Batman or Robin knock out one of the goons, and Robin's like, Batman, look on the bottom of his shoe, and on the bottom of the goon's shoe is a map, a hand-drawn map to Two-Face's hideout that the goon had, so that they can go find it. It's just the worst type of, so reading those old comics is just really, really difficult for me. Why did I bring that up? Because so in the 70s, Denny O'Neil is trying to bring some gravitas to Batman, and it works quite frequently, but we're getting some weird dialogue that makes me wonder if it was ever successful. So here in this third panel, there are my pigeons waiting to be plucked. Like, I don't know. Was that ever cool? I don't know.
I don't even know what that means.
I can only guess that it's
did people eat pigeons? I mean, maybe hens, right? Like
right.
Pigeons is weird.
As you go back in the earlier 20th century, people are going to be more familiar with prepping their own food, after and possibly still, like we can go back far enough. There's, milkmen delivering glass jars. I don't know when the casual expectation of the public would be like, you pull feathers off birds or something like that to prepare them for the meal. And if that presumably is a reference here, I don't know.
But pigeons, though, I mean, this is like maybe people ate pigeons. I just don't know about that.
I don't know. All right. So anyway, he attacks them. First, I'm going to dispose of their artillery, and then I'll do some chin softening. Once again, this is not.
I like that. I thought that. I mean, it's kind of like corny, but it's fun. But actually, like the line before is what tripped me.
Okay.
Because like Batman's like they don't look like the type I can trade wisecracks with, so I'll just attend to business. I'm like, I don't remember Batman being. I mean, that Spider-Man is a wisecracker.
Yes, that's what Spider-Man is known for. But
and I was wondering if that was like maybe a holdover a little bit from earlier versions,
where they're still trying to escape, because that you could imagine that being exactly part of the 60s Batman, that he could be a dude of a wisecracking type. Yeah. It's a good question of like, but at this point, like Denny O'Neil's been writing Batman for at least 9 years, because I know in the 1971 he's got at least one comic book out, right? Oh, actually, let me jump back. Oh, it doesn't have it here. They always remove it, so I don't have the indicia to tell me what year this was published. Do you have in your collection? Is this blank, or does it have the?
It's blank. Yeah.
Okay. So this is 78 or 79. And so if it's 79, he's been writing it for 8 years, and so it's a question of like. But we're gonna get into other weird. Okay, 78. Okay, so the thing is, Batman. Not at this point, hopefully getting further and further away from the wisecracks. But yes, the corniness of the chin softening, it's not terrible. Okay, but in your version, I'm curious, when you were looking at this, did you make out the silhouette of this character behind him when you were reading it?
Not really. I mean, yeah, it just looks like a shape. It's not very clear as it who it is.
And so what I liked about that was when I was reading through it, I was like, oh, that must be another dude who's gonna like get the drop on Batman. And I did like how the color is only slightly off, and like it really does, because if he's gonna get the drop on Batman, it also makes sense that he kind of gets the drops on us, right? Like it's there, but it's not there. You can see why Batman won't see him coming, but we don't really get that. There's no indication that that guy, who was just a silhouette and barely visible, was a good reason to have him barely visible, because it's difficult to tell. But he's actually flipping around and talking to that dude.
Mm-hmm.
So between that panel to this panel, this is Batman actually turning around to talk to that silhouette.
Yeah.
And the only reason we know that is because this guy's got green and this guy's got red.
Right.
You know? It's not clear. It's not helpful. But here's a perfect example of more weird dialogue. He says, now we'll try a bit of conversation. Are you willing to talk? I kept trying to think about, like, what is this? Like, if you were actually like, if you're Kevin Conroy and this was like part of the Batman animated series, how is he delivering this line? Right? Are you willing to talk? Are you willing to talk? Like, how do you say that? Especially the "you" is the part that like the
well,
you.
I mean, this guy is just like coming up on him too, so he's obviously like about to, you would assume, attack him.
That's exactly what I assumed, right? Because I saw the silhouette and I was like, oh, he's coming to attack him. And then he flips around, and catches him maybe off guard by doing this, but not really, because are you willing to talk? He says, not with you. I'm going to make buzzard bait out of you. And he pulls a knife. And one of the just things that I do dig about this is, once again, I don't know how clear this is in your version, but he's almost entirely, and the knife is screen tone. It's covered in screen tone. Only the white of the eyes, the teeth, and the little glint on the knife, and of course this motion effect is not covered in screen tone. Is the screen tone clear in your version?
Yeah, it looks better. It looks better on this paper.
Well, what I like about the screen tone is it gives it a grittiness to it that I think is really appropriate for Batman, right? Yeah. Like, and what I love this how great the white is working. Just, it really is bouncing off, giving some zing to that knife being pulled, really highlighting it.
I always like screen tone.
Yes. So anyway, he pulls it out.
Good to me. I don't know.
I agree. He says, I'm going to make buzzard bait out of you. And Batman says, like that? Not in a century of trying. Which is, again, not my favorite Batman lines. Like, I just do not dig. And then he follows it up with, it's foolish to fight me. You can't possibly win.
Yeah.
You can only get hurt. And I dig that, like that he's moving, but these are still, like, this is too goofy for Batman. I can't take this dude seriously. Not a century of trying.
Right.
Like, I don't want him talking like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is pretty good action, though. I mean,
absolutely. It's all nice and clear. The only thing I would, instead of this, I like this green. Maybe it looks better in your version, but like to pop that out.
Worse, I think.
What's that? Oh, does it?
It looks worse.
Just to pop it out further, because we have a nice yellow on the motion, and it would have been great if it was still yellow. Just keep that yellow. Kabam, chop.
Or even I don't know, maybe white or something.
Yeah, something just really.
They use this funky green in some different places. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean that from that third panel there, the chop on the hand and then into the elbow, into the face, like that's pretty nice.
Yes, you can feel because he's keeping it relatively, it's basically the same camera view, just slightly adjusted, so you can really have that sense of moment, and it's moving from the left to the right, so we get no resistance from our subconscious, so that we really feel the energy of it. And then boom, cut out this nice full body shot of him, basically I feel like he smashed him in the face, and then he's basically catching his dead weight, like that dude would have gone all the way over, but Batman catches him in midair. Feels good.
Yeah.
He says, now, as I said before, our little patty cake session. This is once again not what I want out of my Batman. Right. I don't want him saying patty cake session in reference to fighting each other.
Yeah.
All right. And then he says, I want to talk. And then we get some mysterious dialogue. Have it with me. And so we turn. Boom. A new character's into the fray. She says, for I can do a heap more talking than Zed there. Name's Granny Bleach. My age is slightly older than the mountains. I actually really like that second part. that she just volunteers her age, but it gives her a lot of life immediately, you know, like, and that maybe, I don't know. I just enjoy, like, it's, she kind of doesn't need to say that at all. Nobody would normally say their age immediately.
Well, look at her face. Like,
Yes.
you can tell that she's super old.
Yes. And we
She's
get
got
to
a
it.
corncob pipe.
An actual corncob pipe. Yes. And then I'm known as the Batman, and my question is simple: why the gunplay? And then we get into a nice little backstory, right, where we're establishing that more than 100 years ago, when I was a tad. So when she says older than mountains, we now know that she is literally over 100 years old.
Yeah.
So this lady is going strong, and this is her when she was a little girl. They heard a scream. They found this murdered man, and there was a white bat that attacked him. Once again, this is nice colors to me, right? We got this nice yellow over. I can feel the nighttime, you know, like all these nice orange and like everything's it's separating well where I can see everything, and it's also not too separated to make it like I feel it, the life of it. It's working really well in this comic. I don't know how well it's working in the version.
Like he did a nice job with the shadows,
with the blacks and stuff.
Handled the blacks, yeah.
And then once again, we got some really great, you know, like this is what I'm digging about. It's not muddy, but it also is not like ultra clear. And we don't need it to be clear because it's dark, you know, it's nighttime, it's darkness. Like I want this to be not 100% visible to me, you know? So we're getting, I can't tell. I don't think that's screen tone. Maybe this is screen tone right here. Can you tell? Is there screen tone in this panel?
Yeah, I think like in the shadows,
he's using screen tone.
It looks like a tone, yeah.
But there's like such a nice,
definitely a tone.
There's such a nice, and like I said, if I understood correctly, in your version, you're not getting into this texture, but this texture is working so well to give this grittiness to the world that they're in, or like this fire, you know, there's just like these, like in your version, does it like there's just these little hints of lighter oranges and yellows mixed in there. You getting that at all?
No,
just one solid orange.
Yeah. This is why newsprint is the best, man.
I guess so. Yeah, you know, look at this
great for color. You know,
just simple red, like this chunk of white with the yellow, right? Like it's doing such a great job of separating and casting. You know, it's implying this light, but it's like it's just really like just a cut of white in this character. Like it's all doing so well to build atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anyway, she's talking about her story. She says this woman went into a trance. She was a witch woman, and she was communicating with this white bat. And the white bat said that it hates outsiders, but it'll let them live if they drive off other outsiders. So as long as they keep others from coming into the white bat's territory, these people can live. And then Batman says, and that's the reason why your boys fired on us. She says, that's it. And he says, a final question. Did you destroy the bridge? Nope, 'twasn't us. Okay. So now we know there's two forces out there. And here's an example to me where this is not the greatest structure.
Yeah. His head is long. His mouth is looks like he had a stroke at some point.
Yeah.
He's doing the point.
Yep. And this, once again, dialogue, not that I'm super in love with. Hear me, Granny Bleach. I'll get those strangers away from here. Until I do, you stay clear of them, or you'll regret it the day you were born. It's just, was that ever a tough guy thing that if I was Granny Bleach, I'd be like, what? You know, that's not cool, Batman.
Yeah, she probably regrets being born anyway. She's like a million years old. Probably everything hurts.
Like I like, so there's like a classic insult. It's you're dead meat, right? And like I think cartoons can say that and stuff. You know, it's one of those like safe threats. But if you actually think about that threat, like, and maybe when the first time it was like truly said, somebody said that and they meant it, it's a pretty scary threat, right? Like, I'm going to kill you. Your body is going to be meat. Like, and so some of these like classic threats, they actually do have potency if you think about them.
Right.
Like when somebody yells, damn you, you know, like the actual meaning, if they truly meant it, was like, go to hell for real. Like, right. You know, go into hell. So this threat here where he says you'll regret the day where you're born, maybe at some point in time somebody actually said that and it really was meant, and the person who heard it was like, oh Jesus, like, oh man, okay, that's pretty. But by today's standards, especially, I wonder, like back in 1978, when you bought this off, some kid bought this off of the thing, they'd be like, "Oh, dang, oh man."
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Again, with the next panel, you get like Batman's got. Man, I wonder if he's not like structuring the figure before he's like drawing the cape and stuff on there, because like, again, it's like the shoulder is really far away from.
Yes, like the head should be right around here, more likely, instead of how far up it is. So we're definitely getting some. But man, that cape is certainly cool. Like, it's a cool cape.
Yeah, no, he's good at he's really good at design.
Yes, and once again, I forgive him for all this because he's interested in all of this, right? He's drawing this great atmosphere. He's drawing this even this simplified foliage and this tree, bring this to life, where so many other comic artists are like, oh look, Caribou's drawing muscles, the coolest muscles, and so like they'll never populate their environment with any kind of life to it.
Right.
Go ahead. I was gonna say I love this panel where it's just opened up white space and Batman way at the top there. I love it, and then it actually continues in to the next panel. I love that basically what feels like a pan.
Yeah, for sure. No, this is a great layout for this first panel. You get Batman, and you get the slope of the snow there leading you down to the dialogue, and then you get another little nice shape that kind of moves you into actually they connect. I don't know if it's kind of a tangent, but
no, I think it's on purpose. I think literally it's a panning shot. And what I love is that we don't see his form in this because it is time passage, right? So when we start here, he wasn't out of the bus, but by the time we get here, he stepped out of the bus. I think anyway, that's what I think, Mike, because it looks like it all connects, right?
It does, yeah.
So I think it's intentional.
Yeah, you're right.
And once again, I just love that he's so tiny. There's just a little slice of life, right? Otherwise, it's just the white of the snow. It's so cool, so much fun. Now, this is the part where I wanted to highlight about how it was perfectly reasonable, understandable, and it highlighted the danger. And now he's stepping back outside of the bus, and the secretary says, "You should not expose yourself of the cold, my ambassador." He says, "Nonsense. A bit of weather will not harm me." And the inside girl stuff. They were just being shot at.
I know. Well, and what's funny is he's like, "Dude, it's cold out." He's like, he doesn't even mention the fact that man, we don't know who's trying to kill you. There's still be out there.
Don't go out there. And then what happens? In the next 3 panels, somebody throws what turns out to be a grenade at them.
Yeah. This is also this little sequence here is kind of like a continuation of up top where you've got the three connecting.
Yes.
It's like an animated sequence almost.
Exactly. Yes, we're just panning the camera over, following them as they move. Once again, very cool. That said, what I enjoy so much about the first 2 panels is that because his body doesn't extend out into this panel where it should, right? We get a little. This would continue if it were one shot. Implies that time has passed. That's why he stepped out. We're getting a mixed message here where the grenade is thrown seemingly here because it's in all 3 panels, right? So by the time they got here, this grenade, if it was thrown here, would have already unless they're really trucking with that, so there's a little bit of a you get the full arc, which is nice, but it's also mixed message. The grenade already zoomed past in this moment,
right?
So it should only be visible maybe in this. No, it shouldn't even be visible here because it should only be visible in this panel. But you
could maybe have it in the background, closer to the left.
Yeah, right there.
Panel.
Yeah, and then bam, right there. But you wouldn't have that arc right there. It would just be right there with a little bit of an arc here, and then as it bounced off of him.
This is an example of he had a cool idea, but didn't completely think it through.
Yeah, because he's communicating 2 different messages at the same time. Yep.
Yeah.
And here's one of the things that gets always a little tricky when you decide to go borderless on your panel is if any imagery goes outside, it starts to come up through the gutters of the previous one, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like this isn't that big of a problem, or it's not even really a problem, but it is always, it's like it's a thing you run into when you decide to go borderless. You're like, oh, right, how much further does this panel actually go, right?
Yeah.
And it works well here because he's in a snow background, so he doesn't have to worry about the environment that he has to continue up to some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would have been good too. Like, if I was gonna say, like, if it was black behind there, but then, I mean, it wouldn't make sense in the snow. But yeah, I didn't trip on that. Like,
no. I'm just pointing out, it's one of those things when you decide to go borderless, you have to it creates a new potential problem.
Yeah.
And then one slight little thing here. I would just love to get this grenade over. Like it's just crowding up this. Like, why is it over here? Just get it. Just open up. Give me a little bit of space. Move it over to the left, just a little bit for me.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we see this dude's actually quite brave because he says it's a grenade. He says, "I'll save you." So it looks like he's going to dive right in there. So this guy is.
I don't understand this guy. Like, he is so loyal to the ambassador.
This ambassador.
Like, he's not like a king or something. This guy acts like there's a backstory to these two guys that I don't like. I'm like, man, I don't understand why he's so. I mean, he's this guy's. He's super loyal to this guy.
If you were a dude in any position of power, this is who you want as your
yes, yeah.
But thankfully, Batman charges in, tackles them both, gets them out of there just in time, so that way this dude doesn't throw away his life. Kaboom! It says, okay, so this is the part that really, like, I don't mind when Bruce Wayne ran off to be able to be Batman, but when he comes back into play with these characters, this never works for me, in whether it be Batman or Spider-Man or any other where they have to keep a secret identity. When they're in a location that, like, everybody knows Batman's in Gotham City. That's his place. So if he ever goes outside and appears, like, you cannot have confirmation that Bruce Wayne is also there, because, like, it's going to start immediately adding up eventually, right?
Right.
So as a writer, as a storyteller, I would rather that they never have these characters. Like, if Spider-Man is going to be in Washington, D.C., like, if he's going to appear as Spider-Man, Peter Parker should not be known that he's also there. In this case, yes, these guys are not super familiar with Bruce Wayne and, like, this guy's from somewhere else, but just don't do it, because the more you do that, the more you're like, as an audience member, I am totally fine with suspending belief that a grown man will run around in this costume and punch another guy who's a clown until he stops moving in order to put him back. Like, but there's a limit to that stress, and you don't need to add stress or tension. Like the moment where it finally snaps, where I'm like, I can't believe in this anymore. You don't have to do this. So stop doing it, writers. Stop making the superhero outside of his normal element so obviously appearing as, when his secret identity disappears.
Yeah.
All right, so here we get another unfortunate, super long head. Don't love it.
Yeah, it's weird because the panel right before it, his head looks totally fine.
Yes, nice, very, love it. Nice structure, nice build. Love the, musculature being highlighted here. I can feel the power of Batman, And the great thing about Michael Golden is he's not one of these guys that just draws one male figure over and over. Like, this guy is a different build. We can feel, how, let's say, bookwormish perhaps he is, this guy's a different build. I love that he's giving it, and they're different, heights and stuff. So he's bringing life to his figures and stuff.
Oh yeah. One thing I was thinking is, like, if you take Michael Golden's art from this time period and, like, he doesn't get any better, he just sort of, like, does more of what he's doing here. That's like McFarlane. Like, I see a lot
yes,
of, like,
yes.
McFarlane in this work,
Absolutely.
But, like, the anatomy doesn't get better. Like, he just adds more detail, But, like, fortunately, Michael Golden, he continued to improve on all these different aspects. Whereas, I mean, I like McFarlane stuff, but it's just like an advancement kind of he's not like the most, like, solid, like, artist. He's good at certain things, and I mean, I think it's cool, but, like,
I agree. I think it's cool too. I like it. And that's part of what's, I think, fun, especially getting older. about being more and more open to different styles and different artists and different strengths and weaknesses, and no longer judging them. Like it doesn't like I can appreciate all of I appreciate McFarlane's work regardless of the fact that it doesn't always add up or something, because he's doing so many things that are cool or fun.
Yep.
And yeah, definitely in the future, we'll have to get someone to do some of his comics, because there's just some really amazing choices that dude was making, that just weren't seen in a lot of comic books. And what I think of as very cinematic. There was an issue of Spider-Man, like his actual run, where it's just called Spider-Man, I believe, where it was just these incredible shots where he's pulling out of like being up close up on a fly and like zooming out panel after panel, or this incredible 2-page spread. And it wasn't just that's one of my problems with splash pages and spreads and stuff like that, is so often they're abused, and part of what they're abused about is highlighting a moment that's not actually that cool. Like in manga does it really well. When they do a spread, it's usually a really, really important, powerful moment where a character is doing like maybe socking somebody, and like, so you get this big 2-page spread of this enormous fist, character. And but the narrative is built up to that moment where you're so satisfied, like, yes, finally knocked him out, or something.
Right.
But what I do like about, when like, let's say a 2-page spread, is when there are other panels. So it's not just a giant panel, but the point of the Spider-Man one with the McFarlane is that like it was this really cool shot of Spider-Man like on this water tower in the city, and then but there was other panels of storytelling going with it. Anyway, we'll get to that someday. All right, so he finally informs the ambassador. One of them, he says, Mr. Harrison, one of the Secret Service men, has gone to seek Mr. Wayne, and Mr. Hyde, the other Secret Serviceman, and the driver are seeking Mr. Harrison. And Batman says one of them is an assassin hired to murder you. Okay, so that means that one of the two Secret Servicemen, the driver or Mr. Wayne, is the assassin that has been hired to try and kill the ambassador. Batman says the grenade came from over there. The snow should show his footprints. With any luck, I'll nail the killer within minutes. So off he goes. And then we get this page where, oh, lo and behold, there's somebody with a gun behind the scene, and we got the footprints. He's finding them. Oh, boom! A faint whisper of sound jolts the Batman like an electric shock, and Batman, and the guy collapses. And he pulls up. He says, "Hi, you're wounded." This is a perfect example for me, where I was like, "Who is this?" Like,
yeah,
I've lost all context of these characters running around at this point.
This is the guy that got shot earlier, but yeah, you're right.
No, it's not the guy who got shot earlier, because the guy who got shot earlier is Banshee. Remember? Who was the driver.
But does this guy have like the same jacket or no?
No, so that's the thing, right? And see, this is what I'm talking about, because we don't really we never see, he's got this, the driver has a brown jacket with the fur lining or piping.
Like fuzzy though, right? Like,
it's got some fuzz on it, right? And so we go back to this new dude, and he's got fur on his too, but he's got a green jacket. But this is the point, like it was so easy to not understand who these, because we got
this is the middle guy. He's got the little beanie.
The middle guy, right? So when he's first established to us, we're shown he's wearing a green hat, but we can't see. So we know green hat, but when he comes here, he's lost his hat. So even if you were there, he goes. He must have lost his hat right there. That shape is the hat.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But I'm just saying, this is this was the unfortunate part of this story, is where we didn't never get a full grasp of the characters, and so it leads to these moments where you're like, who's this? Why? And thank God, Batman, is in dialogue, is kind of helping us to keep track of who these people are to some degree. So he drops some news. He says, got my throat, but never mind me. Trained killer found. Set this thing up last week. Planted bomb on the bridge and supplies. Plans to escape over the mountain. And then Batman, he's dead. And the marks on his neck. Puncture wounds. It can't be. Can't be the white bat that the old woman was talking about. He says, now I have to find out where the killer is gone. I'm betting he's at the top of this hill. And then, whoop! Without warning, the ground crumbles beneath his boots, and...
Oh, man. Here we go.
Let's stop right here for a second. So I like the orange being surprising, right? I do not like the orange also being the snow, though.
Right.
So if that had just been white right there, I could have dug it. But this whole orange, I'm not digging it. Not loving it.
No. Yeah, it looks like he's falling into a pumpkin.
Or lava. Okay, he says he finds himself plummeting, his thoughts racing. No telling how far down I should fall. I could be smashed like an egg. Got to stop myself. 4 shoulders and heels against the wall. This is once again, awesome cape right there.
Oh yeah, great cape.
And I even like this, I dig this pose. I feel the strength of Batman in that pose.
Yeah, good pose. Nice design to the cape, but like this sequence for me was like that first panel. I feel like if you had done like an upshot where he's really small, so you can actually like see the height to what he's like falling into,
Mm-hmm.
would have been good. Like kind of like the bottom middle panel a little bit.
Right here.
Kind of gives you that. Yeah, because in the second panel, it's like he's, you get it from the dialogue, like he's bracing himself, I guess, against the wall to slow himself down. But, you don't really, like, it's just orange. There's no, like, you don't, like, he's not in an environment.
Right. Yes.
So I was kind of like, what is, like, you can read what's happening, but it's not super clear because it's just color. There's no.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think I would have loved this kind of background in that panel. Like, so we would have the yellow of the, like, basically the
like friction points.
That's what I was going to say, friction points, but this probably isn't a friction point, right? So the friction points are but that probably would still be okay, you would definitely do a friction point here and a friction point here, and all the yellow could work. And maybe this would be a white because it's not a friction point. It's just
that just motion
line, exactly. And then if this had this background with it where we could see the mostly black, but like some of this like rocky with the texture of the screen tone, then we would have really got the message. But yeah, I think you're right here too, that it would have been nice to have, because we can see the lip and stuff like it would have been really nice to have a true sense of him in danger, right? Because if he was just surrounded by black and like we saw the hole, like it looks like he could almost grab the lip here. But if it was already too late, then you would really feel it. Like, oh boy, he's in danger.
I thought he was hanging on. I mean, I guess he doesn't do like a long shot there because he is saying like, man, there's no telling how deep this hole is.
Right.
So he doesn't want to show that, I guess. But like, yeah, it doesn't look like he's falling. It looks like he's holding on to the.
Absolutely. So I agree. I would have loved to have.
If his hands were free.
Like if they were down here, somewhere, not like somewhere where it was more clear that he wasn't making contact. But like, that there was no hope. That the only hope was to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't fully like work for me.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, this whole I can appreciate this whole thing that we're about to go through. I can appreciate what Denny O'Neil is crafting here, this like death trap and this like puzzle but none of this was working for me. So all right, so he's down there and he says, I can inch my way upward, and can you hear me? I can, killer. He says, you can also probably see those icicles in the cave above you. Now, this is just one small little thing I would have liked to see. I would have liked to see the killer comment on the fact that his trap didn't kill Batman, right? Like he should have said, "Oh, you're alive! Wow!" He just takes it as if it was expected. Like he's like, "Hey, Batman, I know you're alive in there. There's no way you would have died from my trap. So thankfully, I've got this other trap set up for you." Right? And so he says, "Go ahead."
I mean, just silly.
It is silly. Okay, so he says, you can probably see these icicles above you. They've been forming for centuries. They weigh more than 70 pounds a piece. So let's keep that in mind. These are 70 pounds. And let's look at what...
To me, I was like, 70 pounds is like, I mean, it's kind of heavy, but like some of these icicles can be gigantic, in like some of these places that are frozen all the time. Like it could be 700 pounds.
Yes. Now,
70
pounds is, I think, still enough to maybe knock him loose, right, and make him fall down. But let's also look at this distance. He's probably about 10 feet at least, maybe more, from the lip of this hole, right? And I just want to point that out in a second. So he says, those icicles will do a job for me. I'm building a fire up here, he tells Batman. And he's building a fire. And he says, which will cause them to partially melt and drop. You won't have to climb out you won't have time to climb out before they skewer you. So he's now in a nice little trap where these things are going to fall down there, and maybe they'll impale him, or they're at least going to knock him down. And then Batman says, he's right. I might dodge one or two, but eventually I'll be impaled. but I do have a chance, a very slim chance, that it'll require perfect timing. Boom, it snaps. He says, here comes the first one. I got to flap myself, and with my free arm, boom, he grabs it in the crook of his arm. He says, the effort is immense. Slowly, he contracts his muscle, forcing the icy shard upward until he's able to get it close, until he able to close his fingers around the narrow end. And remember, this is 70 pounds. Hucks it straight up and out. Like, I can believe that Batman is like this really top at, like he trains his body. Now, I don't know how realistic, even for Batman, to throw 70 pounds straight up. You tell me.
Man, I mean, well, the thing that threw me off was like an icicle is slippery, man. Like, you're not just gonna grab it by the end and then have the grip to throw this thing out of the. Plus he says like, oh man, my fire's gonna melt these icicles, and then it doesn't melt it; it just breaks off at like the icicle just breaks. This whole thing
is just not a great. It's not a great death trap. It's not a great solution.
The only thing that I appreciated about this was like, and it shows you how much Batman has kind of like changed up until now, where now like basically like he's unbeatable. There's nothing that you can do that Batman hasn't already like accounted for and has
okay, but let's be careful with that, because I don't know where you're going, but I'm going to tell you before you get too far, I really don't like that. So let's just get that out there.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, I like here that there's danger in like just some icicles.
Yes.
You know? Like
I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, now it's like as soon as he were to like fall in the hole or something, you know, I mean, he just batarang himself out or whatever.
And that is kind of a curious element here, you know, bringing up the batarang. But before we get to the batarang, I'm really glad that we're on the same page about appreciating, like, this isn't a great death trap, but I do appreciate that Batman can struggle by any number of means, right? Things can get him. He has to try in order to beat stuff. It is never good when you create a character that does not have to try to win. Conflict and effort is what's exciting. Yeah. And, you know, that is true here. There's conflict and there's effort. It's just very difficult to get on board with for me, and obviously for you. Okay, so anyway, he throws up this thing. It lands on the fire and smothers it, so that way he has enough time without these more icicles dropping. But this part, again, is like, because when you create these scenarios, unless you show exactly how Batman, like, yes, I can believe that if you really kind of got yourself wedged in there, you could stop yourself from falling, right? So he's just lucky that the walls were close enough that he could do that. And I believe that you could slowly walk yourself up that way. But what is very difficult for me is to then work out, okay, but how does he actually get up and out, right? Like, I started thinking of, and this is the point. When you create these scenarios, you're inviting the reader to be like, okay, so how does he actually get out of that? Yeah. Right. So I had to start working it out. I thought, okay, he's up there. And at some point, he's going to need to be able to kind of like flip around. So like maybe like pushes off with his legs in order to like quickly flip around and like grab onto the rock wall like this. And then maybe he can kind of like climb up and over like we're seeing in this panel where he's finally getting out. Right. But they just skip past that because they know it's hard. Right. They're like, okay, he just gets out. It's fine. Like, he just makes it. Right.
Well, at some point too, like the what are they called? Like the little things on his forearm.
His fins is all I call them. Yeah.
Like at some point they become like rigid, where like I've seen him like block blades with him and stuff.
Right. I don't know if that happens. And this is the point, right? We're going back into the 70s, and it's like, what? So for like you brought up a second ago, for his batarang, why doesn't he just throw a batarang, right? Yeah. So like, we know that's how Batman gets around in Gotham City. Like, that's how he doesn't fall to his death all the time. So we know he's good at it. Why doesn't he throw a freaking batarang? And there's no mention of this. He doesn't say, or at least, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does say, I don't have.
No, I don't think he does.
Yeah. So it's a complete it's not addressed about why he doesn't do what he would normally do, what we all know Batman would do. And what's part eventually, like when I start to really get into Batman, was the Batman animated series. I was 9 years old when it came out. And back then, that's when I learned, like, okay, Batman can do these things. So he has like this cool grappling that, like it's like seemingly got some sort of gas powered element to it that can shoot it up. It's not throwing, he pushes a button, it shoots out, right? But when I'm reading these old comics, it's evident that that's not the case. Back then, it's just a batarang with a rope on it, and he's literally throwing that thing around. Yeah. So it makes me curious, when did the more high-tech version of it, was it the animated series? Did it show up? I'm just curious about when did it make the jump?
The first appearance of the grappling gun? I don't know. Actually, it's a good question.
So once again, I love that this was hard for Batman, right? He gets out, he talks about how this wore him out, right? Like this took a lot of his energy to just get out of this hole, which is great. I want Batman to struggle, because the struggle is what makes makes the victory that much more fun.
Yeah.
Okay. So he says, on top of that, I'm beat. I can't rest. The ambassador and Sachi, how do you pronounce it? Sacci?
Oh, maybe Sachi
are in great danger. With High being one of the security men, and Harrison Vanish, the other security man, there's nobody to protect them. Certainly not the driver. He's been hired by Chike's enemy to murder him. And I didn't love this. Like, when did he figure this out? Like, he just suddenly says, certainly not the driver. He's the killer, right?
Yeah.
But here's what I realized. The killer talks to him, right? So even if, like let's say Batman couldn't see him because it's dark, just like that, but he talks to him, and he was in the bus with him. He met the driver. So the moment that the killer talked to him, he's like, the driver. So that's how he knew it. But it's not. I just didn't love that immediate leap, and that you then have to go, because we're not hearing it. It's a comic book is silent, right? So if he just helped us a little bit to say why he knew it, and maybe there's something to said about, like, you're like Batman comics. Try to be a detective yourself. Try to work it out like I did. Probably the voice. That's probably how he did it. Okay, nice drawing. Nice panel. Love this shot of just the life, of him walking through the forest. I get it. I believe in it. Like, this is a great environment panel. And then boom, close up immediately on snow falling from the tree, along with a bleach being one of these mountain men or whatever. Boom, he gets the drop on him. And once again, we're back to some weird Batman dialogue where he says, he's like, they're big and as strong as bears. I can't win with Brawn, because he's tired, right? Like, he's been worn out.
Well, he's injured too. Like, his shoulder's dislocated.
And so he says, I'll begin by shaking his cool. Go ahead.
Do you think, like, when he caught the icicle, because that's when it happened, there should have been some kind of visual that it affected his shoulder?
I guess it
doesn't.
Because it doesn't. Sorry, go ahead.
He mentions it after this. Actually, that's
shoulder is dislocated, useless, is his dialogue in this panel. So, go ahead.
But he said it must have happened when he caught the icicle, but then he used that same dislocated arm to throw the icicle. So it's like, that kind of doesn't work.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Right, exactly. So, so if he wants it to dislocate, it would have been nice to have that, Batman actually react to the dislocation for us to learn that it was dislocated. But I've never had my shoulder dislocated. I don't know if that makes it totally inoperable. I would assume it would, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe you can still, but that makes it even more hard to believe that he's throwing 70 pounds of ice up 10 feet.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, small detail, I do love that Michael Golden actually does rip up the suit, right? Like, showing that it was hard on Batman to scrape against those rocks. That's nice. Yeah. It's a nice little detail that he's including. Mm-hmm. All right, so back to the goofy dialogue. Hey, you're ugly as a pig. And I'm wondering if you're dumb as one. Like, I can appreciate that he's trying to throw him off, but once again, this is silly. It's not. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not cool.
He's trying to anger them, right?
Yes, and it works. And then he takes off his cape to make him blind, makes him smack into the other dude, and then he says, "I warned you. If you have any excuse for this stupid attack on me, you better spit it out while you're still able." That's fine. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine. That's a line I could believe what Batman saying. I'm gonna take you down if you don't answer me, or rather, what I'm gonna do to you will prevent you from being able to talk. And then he says, "'Twas the white bat." He said, we have to take care of the outsiders. And then Batman, suppose I believe you. Where do I find this white bat? Yonder, across the valley, on the far side of the bus. He doesn't seem crazy. I'm convinced he saw something. Now, here's a good point where pointing is fine, right? This is where a real human would point. A point to say, go over there.
Especially if he's off camera.
Now, here's something that worked probably much better in Michael Golden's. I'm assuming Michael Golden is the one applying the screen tone. So this worked much better in his black and white art. By having just black and white, Batman would be nice and open, and then he's darkening this arm with the screen tone, which would cause contrast, right? But when you apply color, even this light blue, it's actually preventing as much contrast as Michael Golden intentionally intended.
I wonder about the screen tone too, because I've heard that like the inker does a screen tone.
Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe it was P. Craig Russell was applying all this screen tone. That's because you're right. He wouldn't put the screen tone. Presumably, he would not have put the screen tone down before the inks.
Yeah.
So you might be right.
I mean, maybe they collaborated in some way. Like I want here and here because I mean, Michael Golden is definitely likes to. As his career progresses, he starts to handle more and more things, right?
Yes, he'll do his own inks.
He might have been like kind of hands-on with it, but
Could
maybe
be.
not at this point.
That's an interesting question. I just want to point out some nice coloring here, right? I don't know how visible this is, but and it's working really well with the different texture and stuff. But like we get this like green and then a little bit of shadow, like just a different, just to give a little bit of rendering, but not too hard, right? Like it's casting these presumably in this shadow light source. I'm not really, doesn't matter. The point is, this looks nice. This is nice.
Yeah.
I like this panel a lot. Love this drawing. Love this. I would have loved if the balloon didn't obscure the cape to help us know that it's all ripped up. We can see that here, but it's just been nice if the balloon was up a little bit higher and not.
Yeah.
Because the point is, his cape is usually not ripped up, and so if you're going to do a special moment where it's a ripped up cape, let me have that full thing, right? Don't have it like barely. Don't do this. Don't do this.
Yeah.
All right, says I won't warn you again. That's fine. That's good, Batman Dialy. I don't mind that. Help! That's Sachi's voice. And boom, a quarter of a mile further on, we finally get the reveal. Yes, it was the driver, Banshee himself. Says, "Yell your head off, sissy. Won't do any good. Good to hear you." And then Mr. Hire, Mr. Harrison, or Mr. Wayne. And then he says, they're all done for. And then I thought this was really interesting because once again, this is 1978. He says, I used this on them, a taser. It was invented to stun. Like presumably, Denny O'Neil wrote this at a time when the taser was so new that he had to tell them it was invented. He had to tell the reader it was invented to stun because maybe that was the thing. People were like, whoa, a taser? What the heck? What's this? I don't know. I don't know if that was like cutting edge technology that even the reader wasn't that familiar with back then.
Yeah, probably was.
He says, I've adapted it to kill, to make the superstitious natives think a bat. Oh, I was so taken with him just telling us what a taser was. I didn't actually really absorb that when I first read it. To make the superstitious natives think a bat was responsible, because the two prongs means that when he jabbed it into the security man's neck that Batman saw, which immediately made us think that, of course the bat must be real. It's confirming here, nope, actually, it was this dude jabbing him.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is maybe a little weakness on Denny O'Neil's plot here. So what he's saying is, I adapted this to kill, and I purposely made it look like the white bat, who is the urban legend of this area, the cryptid. You know what cryptid is? Does that word mean anything to you?
Come on, man.
Just making sure, because I talked to some other people recently where I was like, "What? You don't know what cryptid is?" So it was wild. But that would mean that he knew that this was the area of the white bat and that there were natives who believed in it, right? These mountain men, the Bleach family. Yeah. But earlier, Batman said that the Bleaches were not accounted for they actually tried to shoot, and they did. They winged the driver, the assassin, it turns out, right? He was the first person to get hit by them. And Batman said he didn't account for them screwing with his assassination. So he this is a little wonky parts on Denny. You know, it's like,
Mhm.
was he or was he? You know, like you can't have both. And so as for Wayne, the wimp just might have gotten help. So I'm keeping the ambassador alive till I'm sure I'm cool. Now this is fine with me. So when you're doing stories, especially like if this was the animated series, let's say like you can't kill people in the animated series willy nilly, right? It's very rare when they're allowed to kill somebody. So they can't, and of course this is what Batman is trying to prevent is the death of this assassin or this ambassador. So as a creator, as a writer, you have to set up your story well to justify why the villain doesn't achieve their goal, right? And so by having, because he should just kill him, that's his job right here, right now, right? But he wants to have him as insurance. He's a hostage,
right,
just in case, and that's fine. I accept that. I accept that that's the reason why he's not killing him.
Yeah, I did too.
All right, so then we got Sachi being a hero again. He says, "I will not permit." He dives in, whomp. And once again, this is a color choice that I do dig. I dig the red with the orange because it's telling us that this is like dramatic, unrealistic lighting, but it's highlighting his mood. Right? He's become angry. This is a moment of passion to try and stop this villain.
Yep, he loves the ambassador.
Boom! He gets taken down though, easy. And the guy says, "Come on, we're going for a helicopter ride." Moments later, Batman arrives. He says, "It's nothing. Go after the assassin. He's over there, toward the area where Bleach said the white bat is supposed to be." And then, boom, he says, "Got to drag myself further. Can't let them get away." But then the ambassador comes running out. He's delirious with fear. He says, "From the sky, it swooped down. A great white thing. The driver ran to his aircraft." And this is possibly the worst drawing in the comic.
Yeah, it's like mush.
Yes. And top this off with not my favorite Batman head here. It's not the worst, but it
looks pretty good next to the ambassador guys.
Yes, of course. But then they hear the engine starting of the helicopter, and boom, it takes off, and we get a nice like it's this nice multiple panels with one panel. Like, we know Batman's standing there the whole time as the helicopter passes over and crashes down. So once again, he's playing with time and panels in a really nice way. That is working well here. Because Batman probably didn't move from this spot throughout this whole thing, right? So we know that it's all happening.
Yeah.
And boom, he runs over. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just said one thing I noticed, like on the top three panels, you go from like the sky is orange, then it's like a red orange, then it's red, and the one where it crashes.
Yes,
so
that's a
little
subconsciously. Okay, what do you say? Like, obviously, that could just be literally how the sky is, right? Like, because the sky's not all one uniform color. But why do you think that the colorist is making that choice?
Because it's going from like he's flying and then he's sort of in the process of crashing, so the situation is becoming more intense and more. Red is like he reserved that for the most intense moment, right?
Yeah, because red typically for us is typically in nature it's not a color you want to, like, if something's red you don't want to mess with it typically, right?
Yeah.
Like if an animal has red on it or if a berry is red, it's usually a warning sign of saying don't mess with this thing. And so red for us is interpreted often as danger, and so by using that into that red is highlighting, just like you said, the intensity of the moment, the danger of the moment.
And it's increasing. It's like orange, red, orange. It's like, remember when they had the threat levels?
Yeah.
Like 9/11, remember, it would be like code orange or something.
Yes. Once again, red being. Oh, whoops! Sorry, this whole time thing. We got some comments over here.
We're so bad about that.
Yes. Oh, luckily it's not too far off. All right, it's Creepshow. He's back. He says nitpicking with Ben and Staggs, and he says you guys are crazy. Oh, that's the best drawing in the comic. Classic golden. Then the final one is first gas-powered Bataranga grappling gun was in the '89 movie, as far as he knows. So potentially the movie is the inventor of upgrading Batman's gear.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. All right. So we got the revelation that yes, the Correcage is in fact, as we knew in the beginning, right? Now we're realizing that the very first page we saw is in fact the end of the story.
Hey, is that the show name? Nitpicking with Ben.
All right. Yeah. For now, that's the title of our YouTube streaming show. All right, so okay, so in these panels though, there's this caption here where it says, ignoring the weird. No, sorry. He heads toward the wreckage, and he's pale, talking about the body of the assassin, as though he was stricken mid-air by something that drained his blood. A faint flap of wings, and the Batman does not move, does not look, does not turn to look up upon what he knows is there. And obviously, we've got the confirmation this bat is here. So this bat, which is at least over 100 years old, in fact, and can speak to humans, is a real element, a real supernatural element in this Batman universe, which I dig, because I'm almost like Batman. I'm one of those people that doesn't like the universes, like the character, like the DC universe all being one universe and the Marvel universe truly being all one universe, because the moment it starts connecting, it starts getting messy, like the fact that Superman, like, yes, I want these sort of like these like kind of special spin-off stories where Batman can meet Superman, but the idea that Superman and Batman literally are like in the same planet, it starts to cause problems where it's like, wow, isn't it lucky that none of Superman's villains, or that class of villain, that kind of power level and stuff, ever goes to Gotham. Like, how lucky Batman is, because it would just kill him instantly, right? Or in the world of like Marvel comics, where you have Spider-Man and the X-Men, it's like in the X-Men, there's a fear of mutants, right? But why would they fear them so much when there's all these other wild characters in the universe, right? There's that guy who's got spider powers. There's that guy who's a super soldier. There's those people who are irradiated by cosmic rays and can stretch in a Rockman and stuff. It's like, the moment you start saying they all exist together, it starts undermining each one's individual universe. So I prefer, in my own mind, to think of them as, unconnected, and then you have these special events where they connect, and you can play with the rules. So the point of this, though, is that Batman exists in a universe where there are supernatural elements, right? Like Ra's al Ghul has extended his life over some period of time with the Lazarus pits and stuff, right? It's not 100% grounded to reality. So I don't mind at all that there's this weird white bat thing.
For sure, yeah, I like
loose.
That. Yeah. I think it's funny that Batman is like, oh man, look how pale this guy is. I mean, he did just crash his helicopter and die. But he's like, man, there's got to be a magical bat behind this.
But he hears it. That's the point. He hears the flapping. He knows it's true.
Yeah.
But he never looks at it, because maybe he can somewhat sort of deny it. Or I don't know. Like, it's an interesting choice that Batman doesn't choose to look at it. All right, I just wanted to bounce forward. Well, actually, I was going to make a small comment here. I do like, this is our final page. It's just 2 panels, right? One big close-up of Batman, and then one nice far shot, getting us up in the air with the bat, cutting off. I don't know. There's something really nice about it. Just 2 panels. Boom, boom. Great storytelling. I don't know if I love this panel. It's kind of boring. But I don't know what you would do different. I don't know how you would. I don't know. Any guesses of if you're gonna try and gussy this up, what would you? Or maybe it's fine. Maybe the point is not to be gussy.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you could be facing us more. I don't know. It's just, I think it works either way. But
yeah, I think so. Because if you face us, I don't know. Yeah, it's fine. I just want to show you that the other types of stories. So then we get a Batgirl story, which I didn't read. I didn't read any of this stuff, but I just thought it was interesting how this comic has so many stories in it for all. Then we get a Robin story, and then bizarrely bizarrely to me anyway, back in the 70s, Man-Bat is considered enough of a character to star in his own series, and he's also fighting bad guys. So he's not like just a monster. He's his own superhero, which I just thought was really.
These are old reprints?
No, I think these are all brand new stories that were made for this issue, and that's why it's called Batman Family, right? Batman Family includes stories of all the main, and that's the thing. Oh yeah, and then it had a Huntress in it too. So of course, Batman, Batgirl, Robin, those are all our main characters. But to have Huntress and Man-Bat have their own thing, I'm super curious about the character Huntress. Do you know anything about her? Like literally anything at all?
Not really.
So at some point when I was reading those old comics, I don't know when Huntress, I can't remember where, but they started advertising a miniseries with her, which
Mhm.
I don't think is her, because these are from the late 70s. So I don't think that was her first appearance, but I thought it was. And so I went to check it out because I was excited. Once again, I'm just intrigued. I'm like, who is this? She's in the Batman universe. But I don't know anything about her. So I want to learn about this character. And that miniseries, unfortunately, I stopped reading it almost immediately. Was not what I was hoping for. Very boring. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll start reading this one just to get, try to get a grasp on the character. And I went for it for a little bit, but it just, I don't know, there just wasn't anything here. Like the more, and once, we're talking about the 70s and stuff. And so like the thing with the Batgirl story is I don't want to, okay. So when we start the story out, we get this dude punching a wall, but then when Batgirl's introduced, wham, she's coming in, jump kicking this dude, right? Like she's coming in doing action, and then bam, she socks him, right? So this is what I want out of my superheroes, whether they're girls or guys. I want them doing superhero action. I want them fighting. I wanted them, taking down bad guys until they, punching them until they stop moving. Here we got another indicate, like boom, she's socking her right in the armpit.
That's a
She's
great design.
I love that costume.
This Batgirl costume?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my favorite, which is why I was so shocked at the because like in the animated series, when she appears in the original, like the first pass on Batman animated, her costume is the blue and gray. But then when she comes back in the redesign era, she's got one that's much similar to this. Instead of the gray, though, it's a black. And I was really shocked. I was like, wow, this actually comes from the 70s. Why weren't they using this right off the bat? This costume's great. Yeah. This is the best Batgirl costume. Okay, so anyway, my point was that she's action-based. We're seeing that, right? She's fighting. She's doing superheroics. But when we get to Huntress, I don't know if she does anything in here. Like, I don't know if she ever kicks or punches or, like, she certainly gets defeated. Okay, so first of all, here she is on the rooftop, right? Not looking like a cool superhero, looking like something like a real person would, who is terrified of following you to their death, so that's not cool. And then, okay, here's she does throw a little thing to knock the gun out of his hand, but then immediately gets punched in the back of the head, right? And then she's out. So I was really bummed. I was like, I want to see if this character's cool. Maybe the story was going to do it, and it immediately was like, no. And maybe this character's not cool. Maybe that's the point. I know that Batman doesn't really like her or doesn't like want to work with her, and maybe this is why. It's because she's terrible at being a superhero. Anyway, I just wanted to point out, like, this comic book had 5 stories in it. Like, oh, and this is the one that you read, right?
Mm-hmm.
Enter the Ragman. Mistakenly read is what it did. We discussed about maybe doing this story, but I didn't want to read Ragman and Batman. I want to read I don't know anything about Ragman. I want to find out about Ragman by presumably reading the actual Ragman comic, if such a thing exists. Or it says Enter the Ragman. Maybe this is his first appearance.
They tell his origin in this, and it's it's very nitpick worthy.
Well, now we'll have to look up at some point. We'll have to look it up and see if this is actually where Ragman first appeared.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that Joe Kubert created Ragman. That's a Jim Starlin cover.
Is it? Oh, you're right. Wow. I mean, there's some good drawing in here for sure. That's a nice, solid draftsmanship in this Batman.
Yeah. We should probably point out good stuff too more, maybe.
Yes.
I didn't feel like we kind of were just like, man, this is like weird. This is weird.
You're probably right. I probably should have said more good things about Michael Golden.
I love Michael Golden, man. I mean,
yes.
Although,
me too.
Even with his new stuff, I mean, it can be confusing sometimes. Too much detail.
Yes, yeah, and that's something that can happen with really, really, strong draftsmen who know and are excited to draw everything. Right, that's the thing. They'll start drawing everything.
Yeah, but he has a lot of great stuff. Super influential on a ton of different artists.
Okay, so one thing we didn't do was make a decision on. Creepshow says nitpick Ragman. Do it now. Well, we can't do it now because otherwise I'd have to read it live, and I didn't read it. So we didn't decide on next week. So our typical approach is to try and do an American comic and then some manga. That way we're just mixing it up for ourselves. Any particular thing that just immediately jumps out of your mind that you might want to go for?
Oh, for manga, I mean, I don't have like a ton of manga. I have some Blade of the Immortal. I have Pluto. I have.
We're gonna do Blade of the Immortal. Since I've never read that, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Blade of the Immortal, Chapter 1. I'm excited.
Cool.
Now, yeah, we'll get into that next week. Okay, Blade of the Immortal, Chapter 1. So, Creepshow, if you want to, read ahead and be in it, and now you know.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Oh, actually, let's. The other part of this thing that I keep forgetting, or that we just to quickly. Yeah. Creepshow suggested Gantz, which have you ever read or watched any Gantz, the anime, the movie, anything like that? It's Gantz.
I think I watched the. Did they do one that was like a 3D Netflix one?
They probably did. I've never seen. I read the manga. That's what I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
So but I loved it. I read. I started out and read all the way through the series and loved every chapter of it. So at some point, Creepshow probably is. He's saying, yeah, that's probably in confirmation to the Netflix thing. But at some point, yes, we'll do Gantz as well to actually read the manga and stuff. One of the things I've discovered recently for myself is I almost always prefer the manga, almost always to any anime. Like, it's fun to see the anime, and occasionally an anime will be the superior version. Like I would use Yu Yu Hakusho as an example that takes the raw material of the manga and elevates it and expands on it in just the right ways without doing too much. But and so we can get into that some other time about why I think I prefer manga, the experience of reading over the watching. But one of the things I did want to follow up with is where we're at in our creator-owned stuff, right? So it's now been a couple weeks since you followed, clearly you're in the waiting period between jobs. Where are you at? Did you make any progress? Working on your...
Yeah, a little bit. I'm just still working on my like little fight scene like study or whatever. And I started designing a little bit some of the characters that are going to be in my I don't know what to call it, but my little animated. I mean, it's not going to be animated, right? I don't know what to call it. It's not a short.
It's an animatic that you're developing for your own creation, but also as a portfolio piece to show, for the upcoming jobs. Yeah. But primarily, it's something you've written and created yourself to exercise.
Yeah. So I started to do a little bit of design for that, for some of the characters.
Cool.
While I'm working on this other thing, just for learning.
And are you posting any of that stuff up yet anywhere, like on Instagram or anything like that? Are you sharing?
I haven't yet. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just sketches in my sketchbook. So I'm kind of nothing. I mean, I'll post it probably because I post everything just to have something to put up.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I keep trying to, stay up to date, and then I keep not. So like, when you post them up, probably you'll have to let me know, and then I'll be like, okay, cool, I can finally go look at it. All right. So the thing that I'm doing is working on, creating some horror comics. One created by Creepshow himself, and he's busy working on the script for that. And while he's primarily concerned with that script, I'm gonna spend my time trying to write the script for one that I created myself, which is the Root of Evil concept. Did I ever tell you? Does that ring a bell right off the bat?
Yeah. That's the what are they called? Yeah, you told me about it before with the Forest
Park Ranger,
right?
Yeah. Or Forest Ranger is. So Park Ranger was what I initially thought, but then I did research, and Forest Ranger is the appropriate. So Park Ranger and Forest Ranger are two different things, and Forest Ranger is the appropriate. Well, they can be both. The point is, Forest Ranger was closer to what I was looking for. But now that I say that out loud, based on my research, I'm actually going back to Park Ranger because there was so much that a Forest Ranger could specialize in that there's just only so much that I could research and learn. So if I just pull back and make her a Park Ranger again, the main character is a woman. I don't have to learn so much about forestry,
Right.
which it's fun. I like it, but the point is that like I need to tell a story about her surviving killer trees, not learn about how actual forestry works.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Oh, but anyway, I'm going to try. While he's doing the script for that, I'm going to try and write the script for that project. So, and trying to do it in a month. So he's got a month to write his script. I'm going to try and do my script in that exact same time period.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So, Blade of the Immortal, Chapter 1, next time, 1 week from today.
Nice.
See ya.
Back to listen to us nitpick.